Dylan Mercer, a 42-year-old entrepreneur with a reputation for quiet determination, had built a life many admired in the peaceful suburb of Greenvale. Once an architect whose blueprints shaped dreams, he now ran a modest construction firm that reflected his belief in creating solid foundations, both in buildings and in life. At home, he shared a comfortable existence with his wife, Elena Mercer, a 38-year-old woman known for her gentle smile and compassionate heart, and their 16-year-old daughter, Mia, whose laughter lit even the darkest days. For years, the Mercer household had been a sanctuary of love, where Sunday breakfasts and late-night talks on the porch stitched together a tapestry of warm memories. Yet beneath the surface of their idyllic routine, subtle undercurrents of disquiet began to stir. Dylan had noticed that Elena's eyes, once so full of light, now sometimes glistened with a secret sadness. Phone calls that lasted well into the night and hushed conversations behind closed doors left him with an uneasy feeling he could neither name nor ignore. As autumn's crisp air began to whisper promises of change, little did Dylan know that the calm before the storm was about to shatter the foundation of his world. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere at home grew heavy with unspoken tension. Elena, once the center of every joyful moment, became increasingly elusive. Dylan observed her retreat into a world of private sorrow, her smiles becoming rare and her eyes distant. Mia, wise beyond her years, sensed the subtle shift as she watched her mother's guarded glances and felt the growing chill in the conversations at the dinner table. Late one evening, as Dylan reviewed the day's work in his home office, he caught sight of Elena's reflection in the window, a silhouette framed by the fading light, her expression troubled and resigned. The image haunted him. He began to wonder if the woman he loved was wrestling with secrets too heavy to share. The more he searched for answers, the more he realized that every unanswered question was slowly eroding the trust that had once been their bond. And though he longed to reach out and bridge the distance, he hesitated, afraid that the truth might be more painful than the silence. One rainy afternoon, as Dylan sorted through old files in the attic, a place where memories of happier times resided, he discovered an envelope tucked away behind a stack of faded photographs and architectural blueprints. Its contents were a jarring montage of evidence, text messages exchanged between Elena and a man named Trevor Davis, bank statements with unusual withdrawals, and even snapshots of secret meetings in dimly lit cafes. Trevor Davis, as Dylan learned, was Elena's boss at the marketing firm where she had worked before taking a leave of absence. The discovery hit Dylan like a tidal wave. His hands trembled as he held the evidence, a silent testimony to betrayal that he never saw coming. The realization that the woman he had trusted with his heart might have built an entirely separate life behind his back shattered his illusions of certainty. With a heavy heart and a mind swirling with questions, Dylan resolved to confront the painful truth. But even as anger flared, a deeper sorrow took root, the realization that his carefully constructed life was built on a foundation of secrets. That evening, as twilight draped Greenvale in a melancholy glow, Dylan found Elena in the living room, her posture slumped, her gaze fixed on a photograph of happier times. Mustering all the courage he had, he spoke softly, "Elena, I need to know, what is happening between you and Trevor?" His voice, though steady, trembled with unspoken hurt. Elena's eyes widened briefly before hardening with a mix of defiance and resignation. "Dylan, it's not as simple as you think," she replied, her tone measured. "I made choices I regret, but choices that I felt I had to make." Her words, delivered without tears or apology, cut through him like a knife. For a long moment, silence reigned as the truth settled between them like an icy weight. Dylan's heart pounded, each beat echoing his sense of betrayal. "So you're saying that everything we built, was it just a mistake?" he demanded, voice raw with anguish. Elena's answer was a whisper, "I'm trying to find a way out, a way to mend what's broken, but not in the way you think." The confrontation ended with no resolution, only a chasm of distrust widening between them. As Dylan retreated to the solitude of his study, he realized that the path ahead was steeped in pain and uncertainty. In the days following the confrontation, the Mercer home became a battleground of conflicting emotions. Elena oscillated between remorse and defiance, while Dylan's sorrow transformed into a simmering rage. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows and thunder rolled in the distance, Elena sat at the dining table with an expression both determined and callous. "Dylan," she began, her voice low and unwavering, "I've made a decision. I cannot continue living a lie. I am in an open relationship with Trevor. I want you to accept it or let me go." Her words were delivered as if they were inevitable facts rather than choices laden with consequence. Dylan felt as if the floor had vanished beneath him. The very idea that his wife would dare to propose such an arrangement, as if it were a normal twist in their life story, was too absurd to bear. "You're asking me to be a doormat in my own home," he spat, his voice echoing with bitter disbelief. Elena's eyes flashed with icy resolve. "It's your choice, Dylan. Either we redefine our relationship on my terms, or I will leave, and take everything I have built with Trevor's help." The ultimatum cut deep. In that charged moment, the familiar warmth of their home was replaced by the cold glare of betrayal and the threat of a future that promised nothing but heartache. Unable to accept Elena's terms, Dylan felt his world spinning into chaos. His once calm nature gave way to a torrent of conflicting emotions, sorrow, anger, and a desperate need for justice. Determined to reclaim the life he once knew, he sought solace and advice from an old friend, Marcus Delgado, a seasoned counselor with a reputation for helping people rebuild their lives from shattered dreams. Marcus's modest office, adorned with inspirational quotes and soft lighting, became a refuge for Dylan. "You deserve respect, Dylan," Marcus said gently during one of their sessions. "This isn't about being weak, it's about standing up for what you value." The words, though simple, stirred something deep within him. Yet even as he resolved to fight for his dignity, Dylan was plagued by the fear of the unknown. Could he really take on Elena, and by extension, Trevor, without risking everything he had worked for? The days blurred into nights as Dylan planned his next move. He began gathering every scrap of evidence, every conversation that might one day support his case. The more he learned, the more he realized that Elena's betrayal was not a fleeting mistake but a calculated decision to reshape their lives. In a moment of bitter resolve, Dylan vowed that he would not let his family's honor be trampled upon without a fight, even if that meant crossing lines he had once vowed never to breach. The tension reached its breaking point one fateful evening when Elena invited Trevor over for what she called a necessary conversation. Dylan, determined not to be sidelined any longer, confronted them in the foyer of their once happy home. The confrontation was electric, a collision of wounded pride and simmering rage. "Trevor," Dylan said, his voice low and controlled despite the storm inside him, "you think you can just waltz into our lives and tear everything apart?" Trevor, a burly man with a hardened gaze and a swagger that betrayed his arrogance, sneered. "I'm not here to tear apart lives, Mercer, I'm here to build something new. Something you clearly don't understand." Elena's eyes darted between them, torn between defiance and uncertainty. As heated words flew, the air thickened with hostility. Then, in an instant that seemed to stretch into eternity, Trevor stepped forward and uttered a threat that shattered the remaining silence. "You leave, Dylan, or I promise you, there will be consequences." The threat, as cold and calculated as a winter wind, ignited Dylan's long-suppressed fury. In a flash, what began as a verbal spar escalated into a physical altercation. Chairs were overturned, and the polished hardwood floor bore the marks of a desperate struggle. In the midst of the chaos, Elena's anguished cries mingled with the clamor of shattering trust. For Dylan, every punch he threw was both an act of retribution and a plea for the dignity that had been stolen from him. Yet even as the confrontation spiraled into violence, a part of him screamed for restraint, a silent reminder that the man he once was valued reason over raw emotion. When the tumult finally subsided and the echo of violence faded into a heavy, oppressive silence, Dylan found himself standing amidst the wreckage of a life he had once thought unassailable. Trevor lay bruised on the floor, his defiant sneer replaced by a pained grimace. Elena, her eyes red from tears and shock, retreated into the shadows of the room, uncertain of what the future held. The police arrived soon after, drawn by the clamor of the struggle. Officers questioned each party with a mix of caution and urgency, trying to piece together the fragmented truth. In the sterile confines of a local precinct, Dylan recounted the events with a trembling voice, each detail a dagger in his heart, yet a necessary step toward reclaiming his honor. Elena, silent and withdrawn, offered only a few halting words of regret, while Trevor's once bold rhetoric was reduced to bitter mutterings of vengeance. News of the confrontation rippled through Greenvale like wildfire. Neighbors whispered in hushed tones about the Mercer household's downfall, and the community's respect for the once-admired family began to crumble. For Dylan, the aftermath was a maelstrom of legal battles, public humiliation, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Yet even in the darkest moments, as he sat alone in a sterile interrogation room reflecting on shattered dreams, a steely resolve began to crystallize within him. He knew that to move forward, he would have to confront not only the external chaos but also the internal scars left by betrayal. In the weeks that followed, the legal process unfolded with relentless precision. The court decreed that the Mercer marriage was irreparably broken, and the final divorce settlement was to be determined based on months of harrowing testimony. Dylan, though battered in body and spirit, began to attend individual counseling sessions, seeking to understand the deep wounds that had been inflicted by Elena's choices and the violent encounter that had shattered his world. Marcus Delgado continued to be a guiding light during these turbulent times, urging Dylan to channel his pain into creative pursuits. Slowly, the man who had once been an architect of dreams found solace in sketching again. Late into the night, Dylan would sit at his drafting table and pour his emotions onto paper, a cathartic release that helped mend the fractures of his soul. Mia, caught between the wreckage of her parents' collapse and the uncertain promise of a new beginning, clung to her father with quiet determination. Together, they attended therapy sessions designed to heal family bonds, learning that while trust might never be fully restored, love could evolve into something resilient and true. Elena, facing her own demons in solitude, began to understand that the choices she had made came with consequences far greater than she had ever imagined. As she navigated a maze of regret and self-reproach, she gradually recognized that rebuilding her life would require genuine remorse, honest reflection, and, most importantly, a willingness to let go of the past. Yet for both her and Dylan, the journey toward healing was laden with painful sacrifices and uncertain outcomes. As autumn gave way to winter, and winter to the tentative hope of spring, the Mercer family began to forge a new path amid the ruins of their former life. The final court decree was issued with measured fairness, assets were divided, custody arrangements set to ensure Mia's well-being, and restraining orders established to keep the volatile past at bay. For Dylan, the legal closure, though bittersweet, symbolized the opportunity to rebuild not only his home but also his sense of self. Embracing the slow process of recovery, Dylan resumed his passion for design. He launched a community art initiative in Greenvale that celebrated resilience and new beginnings, a project that brought together neighbors, local artists, and families seeking to heal. With every stroke of his pencil, every carefully rendered line on paper, Dylan reimagined a future where broken bonds could transform into bridges of hope. Mia, inspired by her father's determination, began to explore her own creative talents, finding in music and poetry a refuge from the scars of the past. Meanwhile, Elena quietly exited the public eye. With the support of a small circle of trusted friends and a newfound commitment to personal growth, she embarked on a journey of self-forgiveness and reinvention. Though the wounds of betrayal would remain, she strove to learn from them, hoping that someday, in the quiet moments of reflection, she might rediscover the compassion that had once defined her. And as for Trevor Davis, his violent ambitions and reckless pride had left him isolated and humiliated. The bruises of that fateful night were not merely physical, they were a permanent reminder that ambition built on betrayal and coercion was destined to crumble. In time, the whispers of his downfall faded into obscurity, replaced by the steady, hopeful cadence of a community determined to rebuild. Crimson Shadows, a tale of broken bonds, is a story of pain, betrayal, and the arduous journey toward healing. Dylan Mercer's transformation, from a man crushed by the weight of deceit to one who rebuilt his life with unwavering determination, serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Although the scars of the past remain etched upon his soul, they have become the blueprint for a future forged in strength and tempered by wisdom. In the end, the Mercer family discovered that while the past may never be entirely erased, it need not dictate the future. Through creativity, compassion, and the courage to confront one's darkest moments, even the most shattered hearts can learn to beat anew. And as Greenvale slowly emerged from the long, painful winter into the gentle light of spring, a promise was made, a promise that every ending holds within it the seed of a new beginning. Dear listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey through the shadows. Please share your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this story moving, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of transformation and hope.